Sir, please don't embarrass my mom. The little girl's trembling voice was almost drowned out by the deafening roar of the World Cup crowd. A billionaire laughed. Thousands watched in silence, but no one noticed the retired Marine standing nearby, or the German shepherd staring at the billionaire like it already knew the truth. Within hours, a public humiliation would explode into a scandal that would destroy a powerful empire, expose a deadly secret, and lead to a sacrifice so extraordinary that millions would call it nothing short of a miracle. Stay with me until the end, because this isn't just a story about justice. It's a story about faith, unconditional love, and how God can use the most unexpected people and one extraordinary dog to change lives forever. Morning sunlight spilled across Liberty Crown Stadium in Dallas, where the sound of 90,000 voices slowly awakened another unforgettable day of the 2026 FIFA World Cup. Most people entered the stadium carrying flags, painted faces, and dreams of watching history unfold. Ethan Mercer carried something much heavier. At 41, the former United States Marine walked through Gate C wearing the dark blue security uniform issued only 3 weeks earlier. The badge on his chest looked new. The invisible scars beneath it were not. Beside him padded Coda, a 7-year-old German shepherd with intelligent amber eyes and faded scars across his muzzle. Once those scars had been earned in Afghanistan. Now they belonged to another battlefield entirely. A world where crowds cheered instead of bullets flying. Yet Ethan sometimes found the noise just as difficult to survive. The first roar from inside the stadium echoed through the concrete corridors. Without thinking, Ethan's fingers tightened around Coda's leash. His breathing shortened. His pulse climbed. Mortar fire. No, not here. Just fireworks. Just football. Just people celebrating. Coda gently brushed his shoulder with his nose. "I'm okay," Ethan whispered, though neither of them believed it. The dog looked up at him for another second before continuing forward. He always knew. On the opposite side of the stadium, Lena Brooks hurried between endless streams of supporters pushing towards section 114. Her portable snack cart felt twice as heavy as it had that morning. Pretzels, nachos, soft drinks, coffee. She smiled at every customer because smiles earned tips. Tips bought medicine. Medicine kept Mia alive. Every few minutes, Lena glanced at the old phone tucked inside her apron pocket. No new messages. Good. Her 10-year-old daughter was still resting at Children's Medical Center with another dialysis machine doing the work her kidneys no longer could. Lena hadn't told Mia she was working inside the biggest sporting event on Earth. Her daughter would have begged her to stay at the hospital instead. But hospital bills didn't disappear because mothers wished hard enough. A little girl wearing an Argentina jersey handed Lena 3 friendship bracelets. "My grandma says people who look sad should have presents." Lena blinked quickly before accepting them. "Tell your grandma she's a wonderful person." The little girl grinned and disappeared into the sea of fans. Lena slipped one bracelet beside the tiny silver heart charm she always wore. For just a moment, she remembered what hope felt like. Ethan spent the morning walking security routes through the lower concourse. Most people never noticed him. That suited him perfectly. Crowds made him uncomfortable. Attention made him worse. Years in combat had taught him something simple. The loudest man in a crowd was rarely the most dangerous. It was always the one everyone ignored. Coda suddenly stopped. His ears lifted. Across the hallway, Lena struggled to steady her snack cart after someone accidentally bumped into it. Before Ethan could move, 3 teenagers rushed over. "We got it, ma'am." Within seconds, they helped pick up fallen soda cups before hurrying away toward their seats. Lena thanked each of them. She smiled even though nobody had apologized for knocking the cart over. Ethan watched quietly. She thanked kindness more than she complained about cruelty. People like that were becoming rare. By early afternoon, the stadium had become a living ocean. Drums thundered. National anthems echoed through every corridor. Television cameras floated above roaring crowds. The entire world seemed to be watching. Except no one noticed the young woman serving them. Lena had skipped lunch, again. Her stomach hurt, her feet burned. Still she smiled, because somewhere across town, a little girl believed her mother could fix anything. Then came Tyler Vaughn. Everyone in the security department knew his name. 26, son of billionaire developer Richard Vaughn, whose company had financed part of Liberty Crown Stadium's renovation. Tyler never walked alone. Today he arrived surrounded by 4 friends wearing expensive designer jerseys, each already carrying plastic cups filled with beer. Their laughter echoed louder than everyone else's. They stopped directly in front of Lena's cart. "Well," Tyler smirked, "looks like World Cup Hospitality finally hired a beauty." His friends laughed. Lena forced a polite smile. "What can I get for you?" Tyler leaned closer. "How about 5 more beers?" "I'm sorry, sir. You've reached the purchase limit." His smile faded. "You know who I am?" "It doesn't change FIFA policy." One friend snorted. Another started recording with his phone. Tyler rested both hands on the cart. "Sell them." "I can't." "You won't." "I won't." The words were barely louder than a whisper, yet Ethan heard them from 30 feet away. So did Coda. The German shepherd slowly lifted his head. His entire body became still. That stillness frightened Ethan far more than barking ever did. Coda had sensed danger. Real danger. Ethan started walking. Not quickly, purposefully, just as Tyler's grin disappeared. With one violent shove, he slammed both hands into the snack cart. Pretzels scattered across the concrete. Soft drinks exploded. Hot coffee splashed across Lena's sleeve. She stumbled backward. The hallway erupted with gasps. Phones rose into the air. People watched. Nobody moved. Tyler stepped closer. "You embarrassed me. I'm asking you to leave." "You don't ask me anything." Lena's voice trembled. "I have a daughter waiting in the hospital." "I don't care." He raised his hand. Around them, thousands continued celebrating inside the stadium, completely unaware that beneath their feet, another kind of match had just begun. Tyler's palm never reached her. A powerful hand caught his wrist in midair. "You should walk away," Ethan said quietly. Coda stepped between Lena and the raised hand. His lips never curled. He never growled. He simply stared. Every soldier who had ever worked beside a military dog knew that look. It meant the next move belonged to the human. And for the first time all afternoon, Tyler realized he might have chosen the wrong target. For a heartbeat, nobody in the corridor moved. Tyler Vaughn stared at the rough hand wrapped around his wrist, as though no one had ever dared touch him before. Around them, dozens of phones remained raised, recording every second. The roar from the match inside the stadium rolled through the concrete walls like distant thunder, strangely disconnected from the silent confrontation unfolding beneath the stands. "You need to let go," Tyler hissed. Ethan Mercer didn't tighten his grip. He didn't loosen it either. "I will," he said calmly, "the moment I know she can walk away safely." Coda stood perfectly still between Tyler and Lena Brooks. The German shepherd wasn't barking. He wasn't growling. His eyes alone were enough. Military dogs were trained to read intention before movement, and every muscle in Coda's body warned that he had already judged the man standing in front of him. Tyler's friends exchanged uncertain glances. None of them had expected resistance. They had expected another frightened employee who would apologize just to keep her job. Instead, they found a veteran who didn't care about status, money, or famous last names. Security officers finally rushed toward the scene. "What happened here?" Tyler jerked free as Ethan released him voluntarily. "This psycho attacked me," Tyler shouted. "Fire him!" Lena stepped forward immediately. "No, he protected me." Tyler pointed toward the overturned snack cart. "She refused service and assaulted a customer." "I followed policy," Lena answered, her voice shaking. "He exceeded the alcohol limit." One supervisor looked at Tyler. The other looked at Ethan. Everyone knew who Tyler's father was. Nobody knew Ethan. That alone seemed to decide where their sympathy belonged. "We'll sort this out," one supervisor muttered, "but everyone involved comes with us." As workers cleaned spilled drinks from the floor, Lena's phone vibrated violently inside her apron. She glanced down. Her heart stopped. Children's Medical Center. Her fingers trembled before she answered. "Mrs. Brooks?" a nurse asked gently. "This is Rachel from Pediatric Nephrology." Lena's knees nearly gave out. "Is Mia okay?" There has been another complication. The hallway disappeared around her. The cheering, the cameras, the angry voices, everything faded beneath four unbearable words. "Her potassium is rising." Lena closed her eyes. "Not again. Please, not again." "We've stabilized her for now," the nurse continued, "but Dr. Patel wants you here as soon as possible." "I'm coming." She ended the call but couldn't move. Mothers were supposed to run toward their children. Instead, she was trapped beneath a football stadium, explaining herself to supervisors, worried more about public relations than a sick little girl waiting across the city. Tears burned behind her eyes. "I have to go," she whispered. "My daughter needs me." The supervisor hesitated. "We still need your statement." "I'll give you 10 statements. My daughter comes first." Tyler folded his arms. "She walks away before this investigation is finished. She's admitting guilt." Lena stared at him in disbelief. "My child is in the hospital." "So?" The single word landed harder than any slap. Ethan had heard that tone before. He had heard it in villages where innocent lives became numbers. He had heard it from men who measured people by usefulness instead of humanity. He stepped beside Lena. "I'm taking her." The supervisor frowned. "Mr. Mercer, you're part of the investigation. I'll answer every question afterward." He looked directly at the man. "But if your child were lying in a hospital bed," he paused, "would you stay here filling out paperwork?" Neither supervisor answered. Coda nudged Lena's trembling hand. She looked down at him. The dog's warm eyes reminded her strangely of Mia's whenever she tried to pretend everything was okay. She buried shaking fingers into the fur behind his ears. "I don't even know your name," she whispered to Ethan. "Ethan." "Lena." He gave the smallest nod. "Let's get you to your daughter." They exited through a restricted service tunnel beneath the stadium. Outside, helicopters circled overhead, broadcasting the World Cup to millions across the globe. Fans sang, street vendors laughed, children chased giant inflatable soccer balls through Victory Plaza. The world was celebrating. Lena wondered how it could continue celebrating while one little girl lay attached to machines only 20 miles away. They reached Ethan's aging pickup truck. It was spotless inside except for an old Marine Corps cap folded neatly on the dashboard and a faded photograph tucked beside it. Lena noticed the picture before climbing in. 3 young Marines stood shoulder to shoulder. Only Ethan remained alive. She didn't ask. Some grief introduced itself without words. As the truck pulled away, Coda settled quietly in the back seat, resting his head between them. For several miles, neither adult spoke. Finally, Lena broke the silence. "Does it ever stop?" Ethan kept his eyes on the highway. "What?" "The feeling that you're one phone call away from losing the person you love most." His hands tightened on the steering wheel. "No." He answered so quietly she almost missed it. "But you learned something." "What?" "You stop wasting today's courage worrying about tomorrow's pain." Lena turned toward the window, fighting tears. "I don't feel courageous." "You stood in front of a bully knowing exactly what could happen." "I was terrified." Ethan almost smiled. "So was I." She looked at him, confused. "You were?" "Every Marine who tells you he wasn't afraid is either lying," he glanced briefly toward Coda in the mirror, "or he forgot what fear feels like." Coda suddenly lifted his head. His ears pointed toward the rear window. Then he barked. Once. Sharp. Focused. Ethan checked the mirror. A white maintenance van had just exited the stadium. The logo on its side read, "Liberty Crown Technical Services." Coda stood completely upright now, staring at the vehicle as if he recognized something no human possibly could. Ethan frowned. Coda. The dog barked again, longer this time, much louder. Then, for the first time in years, Ethan saw the old military alert return to his partner's eyes. Something inside that van smelled horribly familiar. The white maintenance van blended naturally into afternoon traffic, leaving Liberty Crown Stadium. To everyone else, it was just another service vehicle. To Coda, it was something entirely different. The German Shepherd barked again, louder this time, his claws scraping against the truck bed as he struggled to move closer to the rear window. Ethan had seen this behavior only a handful of times, never because of fear, always because Coda had recognized a scent his human partner hadn't. "What is it, buddy?" Ethan murmured. Coda answered with another sharp bark. The van drifted into the next lane. Then, without warning, it accelerated. Ethan frowned. Maintenance vehicles weren't supposed to leave during the middle of a World Cup match unless they had emergency clearance. Something about that bothered him. "Lena," she looked up from staring silently at the highway. "I'm sorry. We're taking a small detour." Her eyes widened. "My daughter, it'll take 2 minutes." She looked toward the hospital direction, then at Coda. The dog had never stopped watching the van. For reasons she couldn't explain, she trusted him. "Okay." Ethan pressed gently on the accelerator. The pickup stayed 3 vehicles behind the maintenance van as it exited the stadium district. Inside, neither Ethan nor Lena spoke. His instincts were returning, instincts he had spent years trying to bury. During combat, Coda had detected explosives hidden beneath market stalls, insurgents hiding among civilians, and abandoned weapons caches buried beneath broken buildings. He had never been wrong, not once. "Could he really smell something?" Lena finally asked. Ethan nodded. "Not just smell. He remembers." "What do you mean?" "Military dogs don't forget." He glanced toward the rearview mirror. "Certain oils, certain metals, gunpowder, blood, even the scent of people they've encountered before." Lena looked back at Coda. The German Shepherd wasn't acting excited. He looked focused, almost concerned. The van turned into a narrow loading entrance behind a broadcasting warehouse owned by the stadium. Instead of parking near other service vehicles, it rolled toward an isolated storage building. Ethan slowed. "That isn't normal." The driver climbed out carrying a black equipment case. Instead of entering through the employee entrance, he glanced around nervously before disappearing through a side door. Coda let out a low growl. It was the first sound like it since leaving the stadium. Ethan's heartbeat quickened. "Stay here." Lena immediately shook her head. "No. If something's wrong, then you're definitely staying." She crossed her arms. "You saved me. I'm not sitting in a truck while you walk into trouble." For a second, Ethan almost argued. Instead, he sighed. "Lock the doors. If anything happens, I'm driving away." She smiled faintly. "I'll be driving toward the police." That answer earned the smallest smile Ethan had offered anyone in months. Inside the warehouse yard, silence replaced the thunder of World Cup crowds. Forklifts stood idle. Shipping containers formed narrow alleys. The air smelled of diesel fuel and hot concrete. Coda walked ahead with his nose close to the ground. Then suddenly, he stopped beside a dumpster. His head turned, not toward the building, toward the black equipment case that had been carelessly placed beside the entrance. Coda sniffed once, twice, then scratched the ground furiously. Ethan knelt beside him. The case wasn't locked. He hesitated. Opening someone else's equipment could cost him his job. Walking away could cost someone much more. He slowly lifted the lid. Inside were no tools, no repair equipment. Instead, several hard drives, memory cards, camera batteries, professional video storage devices, all labeled with sections of Liberty Crown Stadium, Gate A, Gate D, VIP Tunnel, East Concourse. Section 114, the exact location where Tyler confronted Lena. Ethan felt cold. Maintenance crews didn't carry security footage. He looked toward the warehouse entrance. The man had disappeared inside. A door slammed somewhere beyond the loading dock. Then footsteps. Someone was coming back. Ethan quietly closed the case. Coda. The dog immediately stepped behind him. Footsteps grew louder. A man wearing a stadium technician's uniform emerged from the doorway. He froze. His eyes locked onto Ethan. "What are you doing here?" "I could ask you the same question." The technician forced a smile. "Routine maintenance." Ethan pointed toward the case. "Maintenance of security footage?" For just an instant, the man's expression changed. It lasted less than a second, but Ethan caught it. Fear. Not surprise. Fear. Without another word, the technician grabbed the case and ran. "Stop!" He sprinted between shipping containers. Ethan followed. Years might have passed since his Marine days, but training returned faster than memory. Ahead, the fleeing man glanced backward once. That was enough. He never saw Coda. The German shepherd burst from the side alley like a silent shadow. Instead of attacking, Coda intercepted him perfectly, planting both front paws against the man's chest. The technician crashed backward onto the pavement. The equipment case slid several feet away, spilling hard drives across the concrete. The man reached toward his pocket. Coda barked once. Deep. Commanding. The hand stopped instantly. Seconds later, two Dallas police officers, already patrolling nearby because of the tournament, heard the commotion and rushed into the loading yard. "What happened?" Ethan raised both hands. He ran. He was carrying stadium surveillance equipment. One officer collected the scattered hard drives. The other handcuffed the technician. As they searched him, a folded envelope slipped from his jacket. Bundles of $100 bills spilled across the pavement. Neither officer spoke. They didn't need to. Everyone understood what cash that amount usually meant. One detective arrived 20 minutes later. After examining the drives, his face hardened. Someone paid this man to remove security footage. Lena's heart leaped. "Does that mean the video is still there?" The detective inserted one memory card into a portable reader. His expression fell almost immediately. "No." "The files from Section 114, he looked up gravely, have already been erased." Lena closed her eyes. The only proof that Ethan had protected her. Gone. Completely gone. As police loaded the technician into a patrol car, Ethan looked toward the scattered hard drives one last time. Coda wasn't watching the suspect anymore. He was staring at a single, empty memory card case lying beneath the van. The slot inside was missing one card. Only one. Somewhere. The most important recording had never been recovered. The emergency room smelled of antiseptic and quiet desperation. For Lena Brooks, it had become more familiar than home. She hurried through the pediatric wing, barely noticing the nurses greeting her by name. Every corridor held memories she wished she could forget. Long nights beside machines, whispered prayers in empty waiting rooms, and conversations no mother should ever have with a doctor. Ethan followed several steps behind. He felt strangely out of place. He had walked through war zones without hesitation, yet entering a children's hospital required a kind of courage he had never learned in the Marines. Coda remained unusually calm beside him. The moment they reached room 417, the German shepherd's posture softened, as if he already understood this was sacred ground. Mia Brooks looked impossibly small beneath crisp, white blankets. Clear tubing ran from her arm. The dialysis machine hummed steadily beside her bed, doing the work her failing kidneys could no longer manage. She looked toward the doorway. The moment she saw her mother, her tired face brightened. "You came." Lena crossed the room in seconds. "I'm sorry I'm late." "You promised you'd be careful." "I know. I'm here now." Mother and daughter held each other without speaking. Neither wanted the other to feel how frightened she truly was. Ethan quietly turned toward the window, pretending to admire the Dallas skyline. Some reunions deserved privacy. Coda, however, slowly approached the bed. He lowered his head until Mia's tiny fingers brushed the fur between his ears. The dog's tail moved gently. "You have a puppy," Mia whispered. Ethan smiled. He'd be offended if he heard that. "He's 7. He's retired." Mia giggled softly. "Then he's an old puppy." For the first time that day, Ethan laughed, a real laugh, one he hadn't heard from himself in years. Dr. Arjun Patel entered carrying a tablet. He paused when he noticed Coda. "I usually don't allow animals." Mia looked instantly disappointed. "But," the doctor smiled, "I'll make one exception." He reviewed Mia's latest results. "The emergency has passed." Lena finally released the breath she'd been holding. "But the overall situation hasn't changed." He sat beside the bed. "Her kidneys continue to decline. We've adjusted medications. We've increased dialysis. Unfortunately," he hesitated, "the best long-term option remains a transplant." Lena lowered her eyes. "We're still waiting." Dr. Patel nodded sadly. "The donor registry hasn't found a compatible match." "Not yet." The room fell silent. Hope had become something measured in phone calls that never came. While Lena spoke privately with the doctor, Ethan wandered quietly around Mia's room. Children's drawings covered nearly every wall. Rainbows, butterflies, soccer balls, dream vacations. One picture caught his attention immediately. Unlike the others, it wasn't colorful. It was drawn carefully with pencil. A stadium, thousands of tiny people. One woman pushing a snack cart. Beside her stood a large German shepherd, and behind them, a tall man wearing what looked unmistakably like a Marine Corps cap. Above the drawing, written in uneven handwriting, were the words, "Heroes don't wear medals every day." Ethan stared at it for several seconds. "When did she draw this?" he quietly asked. Lena smiled through tired eyes. 3 weeks ago." "Before we met?" "Yes." He looked confused. "But she didn't draw you. She imagined you." Lena walked beside him. "Every time I leave for work, she worries. So she started drawing someone she hoped would protect me." She pointed toward the sketch. "She always said, 'Mom, maybe God already picked somebody.'" Ethan felt something tighten inside his chest. He had spent years believing God had forgotten his address. Yet somehow, a little girl he had never met had imagined someone remarkably like him. He looked toward Mia. She was gently scratching Coda beneath the chin. The old soldier had completely surrendered to her affection. "I think," Ethan whispered, "she picked the better hero." Lena shook her head. "No, Coda trusts people. But today, he trusted you." Just then, a television mounted in the corner interrupted the quiet. "Breaking news. Security incident at Liberty Crown Stadium." Footage showed Tyler Vaughn leaving the stadium surrounded by lawyers. The reporter spoke rapidly. "Sources close to the investigation claim surveillance footage connected to today's altercation has disappeared." Lena's heart sank. Then came the next sentence. "Representatives for businessman Richard Vaughn have released a statement claiming security officer Ethan Mercer physically assaulted Tyler Vaughn without provocation." Ethan watched silently. Another lie, another accusation. It shouldn't have surprised him. Instead, he simply looked tired. Dr. Patel frowned. "Is that you?" Ethan nodded once. "I'm sorry." The doctor turned off the television. "My patients have enough stress already." As evening settled outside, Lena walked Ethan toward the elevator. "I don't know how to thank you." "You don't." "I mean it. If you hadn't stepped in..." She couldn't finish the sentence. Ethan looked through the glass windows toward the fading sunset. "I couldn't save everyone." His voice became distant. "There were people overseas who waited for someone like me. And I arrived too late." He looked back at Mia's room. "I'm tired of being late." Lena understood. Some wounds never stop bleeding. They only learn to hide beneath ordinary conversations. Before leaving, Mia called out weakly, "Mr. Ethan?" He turned. She reached beneath her pillow. "I made something." She handed him the pencil drawing from the wall. "I want you to keep it, so you'll come back." He accepted it carefully, almost afraid to bend the paper. "I will. I promise." As Ethan and Coda stepped into the hallway, his phone vibrated. Unknown number. He answered. A calm, female voice spoke first. "Mr. Mercer? This is Detective Isabel Moreno. We recovered something from the warehouse." Ethan stopped walking. "What was it?" "A hidden backup device." His pulse quickened. "The erased footage wasn't completely destroyed," she paused, "but there's something on the recording that has nothing to do with Tyler Vaughn." "What does it show?" Silence lingered for 2 long seconds. Then the detective answered quietly, "It shows someone inside the stadium deliberately watching Lena Brooks. For hours. Long before today's confrontation." The call ended, but Detective Isabel Moreno's final words echoed inside Ethan's mind. Someone had been watching Lena Brooks for hours. Not following the crowd, not monitoring security, watching one exhausted mother pushing a snack cart through Liberty Crown Stadium. It made no sense, unless Tyler Vaughn had never been the real story. 20 minutes later, Ethan parked outside the Dallas Police Department. Coda jumped from the truck before Ethan even opened his own door. The German shepherd scanning the parking lot with the same alertness he once reserved for military checkpoints. Detective Moreno met them inside the digital evidence unit. She was in her late 30s, composed, with the kind of eyes that noticed details other people overlooked. "You came quickly. You sounded concerned." "I am." She led Ethan into a small conference room. A large monitor displayed dozens of surveillance windows from different parts of Liberty Crown Stadium. "The damaged files weren't completely erased," she explained. "The technician copied most of them onto the hidden backup drive before deleting the originals." "So what did you find?" Moreno pressed play. The recording began nearly 4 hours before Ethan had confronted Tyler. Lena pushed her snack cart through the East Concourse, smiling politely at customers while checking her phone every few minutes, probably waiting for updates from the hospital. Nothing unusual. Then Moreno paused the footage. "Watch this." She zoomed toward the background. A man wearing a gray maintenance jacket stood beside a pillar. He wasn't working. He wasn't speaking with anyone. He simply watched Lena. The video jumped forward 15 minutes. Another camera. Different hallway. The same man. Always several yards away. Always pretending to examine electrical panels or maintenance equipment. Always facing Lena. Another jump. 30 minutes later, another camera. Same gray jacket. Same baseball cap pulled low. Same deliberate distance. "He follows her everywhere," Ethan said quietly. Moreno nodded. "For almost 3 hours." "What happened after Tyler showed up?" Moreno switched to another clip. Tyler Vaughn appeared with several friends, drunk, laughing. The gray-jacketed man stopped walking. Instead of intervening, he reached into his pocket. His thumb touched something that looked like a phone. Seconds later, Tyler walked directly toward Lena's cart. Ethan leaned closer. "You think they were communicating?" "We don't know. But the timing is interesting." Moreno enlarged one frame. The image blurred under magnification. The man's face remained hidden beneath the cap. Only one feature stood out clearly, a distinctive tattoo behind his left ear. 3 black lines crossing inside a small circle. Ethan frowned. "I've seen that symbol." Moreno looked surprised. "Where?" He searched his memory. Not a battlefield, not prison, not the stadium. Then suddenly, the white maintenance van. The technician Coda had stopped. There was a sticker inside the van, the same design. Moreno immediately made a note. Before they could continue, another detective entered, carrying a thin evidence folder. "We identified the arrested technician." He handed Moreno the file. "His name is Victor Salas. No criminal record. But," he flipped another page, He started working for Liberty Crown only 6 weeks ago. Temporary contractor. Moreno looked at Ethan. Lena has worked there for almost 4 years. So whoever planned this didn't choose her randomly. Meanwhile, across the city, Lena sat beside Mia's hospital bed, reading aloud from an old children's adventure novel. Mia had fallen asleep halfway through the chapter. Lena quietly closed the book. For a few precious minutes, the machines remained silent, except for their steady rhythm. She gently brushed hair away from Mia's forehead. "I wish I could trade places with you," she whispered. "If love could heal kidneys, you'd have been healthy years ago." A soft knock interrupted her. Rachel, one of the pediatric nurses, stepped inside carrying a small envelope. "This was delivered downstairs." "It doesn't have a return address," Lena frowned. "Who brought it?" "No one knows. It was left at reception." Inside the envelope, only a folded photograph, nothing else. Lena slowly unfolded it. Her blood froze. The picture showed herself pushing her snack cart inside Liberty Crown Stadium. It had clearly been taken from a distance. She turned it over. Written neatly in black ink were 7 words. "Stop asking questions if you love her." The room suddenly felt cold, very cold. At the police station, Ethan's phone rang. He smiled when he saw Lena's name. The smile disappeared almost immediately after hearing her voice. "Ethan, someone knows where Mia is." His heartbeat stopped. "What happened?" She struggled to breathe. "I received a picture. They're threatening my daughter. Don't touch anything. We're coming." Within 20 minutes, Moreno, Ethan, and 2 uniformed officers arrived at Children's Medical Center. The envelope was carefully sealed into an evidence bag. Moreno examined the photograph under bright light. No fingerprints. Professional printer. High-quality paper. Whoever sent it had planned carefully. As officers questioned hospital staff, Coda quietly wandered around the hallway. Then he stopped. His nose lifted into the air. He sniffed once, twice. His entire body became rigid. "Ethan." The veteran turned immediately. Coda wasn't looking at the envelope. He was staring through the glass entrance toward the hospital parking lot. Outside, a man wearing a gray maintenance jacket calmly climbed into a dark pickup truck. The baseball cap hid most of his face, but just before closing the driver's door, he reached up to adjust his collar. For less than a second, the skin behind his left ear became visible. 3 black lines inside a circle. Exactly the same tattoo. Coda exploded into a bark. The man looked toward the entrance. Their eyes met across the parking lot. Instead of panicking, the stranger smiled. Then he slowly raised one finger, pointing directly toward Mia's hospital window, before driving away into the night. By sunrise, Children's Medical Center was under police protection. 2 officers stood outside Mia's room. Another monitored the pediatric floor. Detective Isabel Moreno wasn't taking chances anymore. Whoever had followed Lena for weeks had now threatened her daughter openly. That changed everything. Inside the hospital room, Mia was awake but unusually quiet. She watched the first rays of sunlight spill across the floor while absent-mindedly stroking Coda's head. The old German shepherd refused to leave her bedside. It was as though he had appointed himself her guardian. "Ethan?" Mia asked softly. He looked up from the chair beside the window. "Yeah? If someone is trying to scare Mom, you're not going to leave us, are you?" The question landed harder than any accusation. Ethan had spent years convincing himself that keeping his distance protected people. Yet every step he had taken toward Lena and Mia had only drawn danger closer to them. Still, he couldn't lie. "No, I'm staying." Coda rested his head on Ethan's boot, almost as if confirming the promise himself. Later that morning, Detective Moreno returned carrying several folders. "We identified the tattoo." Ethan immediately stood. "It belongs to a private security consulting company." "What kind of company?" "The public records say executive protection." She paused. The confidential files tell a different story. The company had repeatedly changed names over the past decade. Its employees frequently worked temporary contracts at major sporting events, concerts, and political gatherings. Several former workers had disappeared after federal investigations. But here's the strange part, Moreno continued. Every company was financed through shell corporations. Who owns them? She slid one document across the table. The signature at the bottom belonged to a familiar name, Richard Vaughn, Tyler's father. Neither Ethan nor Lena spoke. The silence said enough. Tyler's cruelty hadn't begun with him. It had been protected from the very top. Meanwhile, Liberty Crown Stadium prepared for one of the tournament's biggest quarterfinal matches. More than 80,000 fans were expected. National media filled every hallway. Security doubled. Despite the ongoing investigation, Ethan reported for duty. "I thought they'd suspend you," Lena said when she saw him adjusting his security radio. "So did I." "What changed?" "The police." Moreno had quietly informed stadium executives that Ethan was now assisting an active criminal investigation. Removing him would interfere with evidence collection. For the first time since the incident, Richard Vaughn's influence had encountered resistance. Before kickoff, Ethan met privately with Moreno inside the security control room. She pointed toward dozens of surveillance monitors. "We're watching every maintenance worker. And the gray-jacketed man? No identification yet. But," she zoomed in on a live camera, "we found another problem." The same white maintenance van from 2 days earlier had entered the stadium grounds again. Only this time, it wasn't on the official vehicle schedule. Coda noticed it before anyone else. The German shepherd stood abruptly, his ears pointed toward monitor 12. Then he growled. The room fell silent. One technician whispered, "Is he looking at the van?" Ethan nodded. He remembers. Moreno immediately radioed nearby officers. "Unit 3, stop maintenance vehicle Delta 7 before it reaches the service tunnel." A voice answered seconds later. "Negative." "The van just disappeared." The stadium erupted as fans cheered the opening whistle. Inside the control room, however, no one celebrated. Every camera was searching. Every officer listened. Then, monitor 21 flickered. The white van briefly appeared, entering an underground loading corridor. Only employees could access that tunnel. Moreno frowned. How did they get clearance? A technician rapidly checked digital access logs. They didn't. The gate opened manually. Someone inside the stadium had helped them. Ethan didn't wait for orders. "I'm going." Moreno grabbed her radio. "I'm coming with you." Coda was already moving before either of them reached the elevator. Years of military service had taught the dog one simple truth. When everyone else started running, the danger had already begun. The underground service tunnel echoed with distant crowd noise from the match above. The contrast felt surreal. Tens of thousands of fans celebrated goals overhead. Below them, only silence. The abandoned van stood with both rear doors open. No driver, no passengers. Coda approached cautiously. He sniffed around the cargo area, then suddenly froze. Not because of explosives, not because of blood, because of medicine, hospital-grade disinfectant, dialysis supplies. Ethan looked inside. Several unopened medical boxes had been stacked against the wall. Each carried labels from Children's Medical Center. Lena stared in disbelief. Those are the same supplies Mia receives." Moreno's expression darkened. "They've been watching the hospital too." Before anyone could examine the boxes further, Coda barked violently toward the darkness beyond the tunnel. Footsteps. Running. A shadow disappeared behind a concrete pillar. "Ethan!" He sprinted after it. The figure moved with practiced speed, weaving between support columns. Just as Ethan closed the distance, the man glanced back. The baseball cap fell away. For the first time, Ethan saw his face. Late 40s, military haircut, calm eyes. the tattoo behind his ear unmistakable. The stranger smiled again. You finally caught up, Marine. Ethan stopped. You know me? Oh, the man chuckled quietly. I know far more about you than you realize. He tossed a small flash drive onto the concrete floor. You'll find your answers there. Then he disappeared through an emergency exit that automatically locked behind him. By the time officers reached the outside parking area, he was gone. Ethan picked up the flash drive. There was no label. Only one word had been scratched into the metal casing with a knife. Mercer. Not Brooks. Not Vaughn. His own family name. As Coda stared silently at the tiny drive in Ethan's hand, a terrifying realization settled over him. The mystery had never started with Lena. Someone had been waiting for Ethan Mercer to come back into their life. The flash drive felt heavier than metal. It felt like the past. Ethan, Detective Isabel Moreno, and the cybercrime team gathered inside police headquarters before sunrise. No one spoke while the encrypted files slowly opened. The first folder contained military records. Ethan frowned. They're mine. Every deployment, every commendation, every psychological evaluation after returning from overseas. Even documents that should have remained classified. Moreno's expression hardened. Someone has been building a file on you for years. The second folder was labeled Brooks. Inside were hundreds of photographs of Lena and Mia, hospital visits, dialysis appointments, the apartment building where they lived, even Mia's elementary school before she became too sick to attend regularly. Lena covered her mouth. This isn't surveillance, it's obsession. Then they opened the final folder. One video, no title. The screen revealed the man with the tattoo sitting calmly inside an empty office. He looked directly into the camera. If you're watching this, Ethan Mercer, then you finally chose to help someone again. Ethan's heartbeat slowed. The stranger smiled. I knew you would. You never leave innocent people behind. He leaned closer. Richard Vaughn hired me to erase security footage and intimidate Lena Brooks. But he never understood what I discovered. The man paused. Mia Brooks is a perfect kidney match. The room went completely silent. For you. Lena stared blankly at the screen. What? What does that mean? The man answered before anyone asked again. 20 years ago, a private fertility clinic illegally mixed donor records. You donated bone marrow while serving in the Marines. Those samples were later sold through a black market medical network. Without your knowledge. He took a slow breath. Mia carries your genetic compatibility. Not because she's your daughter, but because your tissue profile is almost uniquely compatible. The recording ended. No explanation, no farewell, only darkness. 3 days later, every laboratory repeated the tests. Every result came back identical. Dr. Arjun Patel sat across from Ethan inside his office. I've never seen anything quite like this. Are you saying I could save her? Patel nodded slowly. If you're willing. The words echoed through Ethan's heart. For years he had carried guilt over lives he couldn't save. Now, life had unexpectedly placed one within his reach. That evening, Ethan visited the hospital alone. Mia was drawing again. This time she had sketched Coda chasing a soccer ball across the World Cup field. She smiled. I made him younger. He appreciates that, she laughed, then noticed Ethan wasn't smiling. Something happened. He pulled up a chair beside her. The doctors found a donor. Her eyes widened. They did? They did. Who is it? Ethan hesitated, then gently answered, I am. Mia looked confused. But will it hurt? A little. Are you scared? He thought carefully before answering. Yes. She reached for his hand. So am I. For several seconds, neither of them spoke. Finally, Mia whispered, then maybe we can be brave together. Tears blurred Ethan's vision. No battlefield, no medal, no promotion. Nothing in his entire life had ever required more courage then answering that little girl's quiet request. He squeezed her hand. Together. The surgery took place 1 week later. Outside the operating suite, Lena waited beside Coda for nearly 9 hours. She never sat down. She prayed. She cried. She replayed every moment since the day Ethan had stepped between her and Tyler Vaughn. One decision, one stranger, one act of kindness. It had changed everything. Finally, the operating room doors opened. Doctor, Patel removed his surgical cap. A smile spread across his exhausted face. It worked. Lena collapsed into tears. Coda wagged his tail for the first time in days. News traveled quickly, but an even bigger story broke that afternoon. Federal agents arrested Richard Vaughn on multiple charges, including conspiracy, witness intimidation, evidence tampering, medical fraud, and operating shell companies used to conceal criminal activity. Tyler Vaughn was arrested alongside him after investigators recovered deleted messages proving he had coordinated the attack on Lena and ordered the surveillance footage destroyed. The billionaire who believed money could silence anyone left the courthouse in handcuffs. 6 months later, Liberty Crown Stadium welcomed thousands of fans for a special World Cup charity celebration honoring frontline workers, veterans, medical staff, and organ donors. Ethan walked slowly across the field. The surgery scar still pulled slightly beneath his shirt. Beside him trotted Coda, wearing a simple blue service vest. From the opposite tunnel came Lena, holding Mia's hand. The little girl looked healthier than anyone had dared to imagine. Her cheeks carried color again. She no longer needed dialysis. As the stadium rose in applause, Mia suddenly broke free from her mother's hand. She ran toward Ethan. Without hesitation, he knelt. She threw her arms around his neck. "You kept your promise." He smiled through tears. "I told you I'd come back." The giant stadium disappeared around them. The cameras, the applause, the World Cup. None of it mattered, because at that moment, one little girl was alive. Not because of a miracle that fell from heaven, but because ordinary courage had answered when love called. And as Coda rested quietly beside the family he had unknowingly brought together, Ethan finally understood something the Marines had never been able to teach him. The greatest victory of his life would never be measured on a battlefield. It would forever be measured by the heartbeat of the child laughing in his arms. As this story comes to an end, perhaps the greatest miracle wasn't found in a stadium, a courtroom, or even an operating room. Perhaps the real miracle was that God placed the right people in each other's paths at exactly the right moment. Sometimes his answers don't arrive with thunder from the sky. They arrive through an unexpected act of kindness, a loyal friend who never leaves your side, a stranger willing to sacrifice, or a faithful dog that reminds us what unconditional love looks like. If you're going through a difficult season today, don't lose hope. God often works quietly, even when we can't see his plan. Keep choosing compassion over anger, faith over fear, and hope over despair. One small act of kindness can become the turning point in someone else's life, and perhaps in your own. May the Lord bless you and your family with good health, peace, strength, and countless reasons to smile. May he guide your steps, protect your loved ones, and remind you every day that you are never walking alone, because his love is always with you. If this story touched your heart, please share it with someone who may need a little hope today. We'd love to hear from you. Leave a comment and tell us where you're watching from or what lesson stayed with you the most. And if you enjoy heartfelt stories like this, don't forget to subscribe and join our growing family. Your support helps us continue creating stories that celebrate kindness, courage, forgiveness, and faith. Thank you for watching. God bless you, and may his light shine upon you today and always.